Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Native English. Today, we're exposing some bad habits that might be slowing down your English progress.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about what you're not doing. It's about what you're already doing that's holding you back.
So, we're going to break down 9 common habits that make learning English harder. And be honest, how many of these are you guilty of?
I feel like I've definitely done some of these when learning a new language. But don't worry, we'll also share how to fix them. All right, let's start with the first bad habit: overusing translation apps.
Oh yeah, this is a big one. When you see a new word, do you immediately grab your phone and translate it into your native language?
If you do, you're not alone. Translation apps can be helpful, but relying on them too much is a problem.
Right. It slows you down because you're always switching between languages instead of thinking in English.
And let's be real, translations aren't always accurate. Some words don't have a perfect match in other languages.
Plus, if you're always translating, you're stuck in your native language structure, and that makes it harder to form natural English sentences.
So how do we fix this? First, switch to an English-English dictionary, like Merriam-Webster or Cambridge, instead of a bilingual one.
And before checking a dictionary, try to guess the meaning from context. Your brain will get better at understanding English naturally.
Another great trick is explaining words in English instead of translating. Like, instead of translating amused, try explaining it.
Yeah, you could say something like, amused means feeling happy and entertained by something funny or interesting.
See? No translation needed. Try this method, and soon you'll start thinking in English more easily.
All right, let's move on to the second bad habit. This one might surprise you.
The second bad habit is memorizing advanced or high-level words. A lot of learners think using big, fancy words will make them sound fluent.
Yeah, but here's the truth. Native speakers rarely use complicated words in daily conversations. You don't need to sound like a dictionary to sound fluent.
If you memorize rare words without really knowing how to use them, your speech might sound unnatural or even confusing.
Like imagine saying your perspicacity is impressive. Most native speakers would just say, you're really sharp.
Right. And the problem with memorizing difficult words is that they don't stick if you never use them.
So how do we fix this? First, focus on common, useful words that native speakers actually say.
And learn words in context. Don't just memorize word lists. See how words are used in real sentences.
A great trick is using one new word per day in a sentence. Like instead of memorizing perspicacious, just use sharp or observant.
Yeah, try saying, "She's really sharp. She notices everything." That sounds way more natural.
So don't waste time on words you'll never use. Focus on the words that actually help you communicate.
The third bad habit is focusing too much on grammar. Now, don't get us wrong. Grammar is important, but obsessing over it can actually hold you back.
Exactly. If you're always thinking, is this the right tense? Did I use the correct preposition? You might freeze and stop yourself from speaking.
The thing is, native speakers don't think about grammar rules while talking. They don't pause and analyze their sentence structure. They just speak.
So instead of memorizing grammar rules, focus on learning phrases and sentence patterns naturally. When you hear the same structure again and again, your brain picks it up without you needing to analyze every word.
One great way to do this is by listening to real conversations, like in podcasts, YouTube videos, or TV shows. And by the way, in our ebook, we highlight real conversations to help you learn grammar in context.
Yeah, when you listen to real English, you'll start to notice grammar patterns without forcing yourself to memorize them.
Let's look at an example. Instead of overthinking, should I use the present perfect or past simple in this sentence? Just say what sounds natural.
Right. Instead of stressing over, wait, do I say I have gone or I went? Just say I've been to Paris before. It's natural, it's correct, and you don't have to overanalyze it.
So don't let grammar rules slow you down. Focus on learning patterns from real conversations, and your grammar will improve naturally.
All right, let's move on to the next bad habit. This one stops a lot of people from improving.
The fourth bad habit is relying only on passive learning. Watching movies and listening to podcasts is great, but if you never actually use English, your speaking won't improve.
Right. You might understand English perfectly when you hear it, but when it's your turn to speak, your brain freezes. That's because listening and speaking are two different skills.
And a lot of learners assume that just exposing themselves to English, watching TV shows, listening to podcasts, reading articles, will magically make them fluent. But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, imagine trying to learn how to swim just by watching videos. If you never get in the water, you won't actually know how to swim.
Exactly. So if you want to speak English fluently, you have to practice speaking. Passive learning is useful, but it's not enough on its own.
So how do you fix this? First, make speaking a daily habit. Even if you don't have a conversation partner, just talk to yourself.
Right. Describe what you're doing, your thoughts, or even repeat what you hear from a podcast or video. Speaking out loud helps train your brain to form sentences naturally.
Another great technique is shadowing. You listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say immediately, copying their pronunciation and rhythm. It's one of the best ways to sound more natural.
And don't forget about writing. A lot of learners only focus on speaking, but writing helps you organize your thoughts in English. Even something simple like keeping a daily journal, posting on social media, or commenting on videos can help.
And the more you actively use English, the faster you'll improve. So don't just listen, speak and write every day.
The fifth bad habit is memorizing vocabulary without context. A lot of learners try to memorize long word lists, thinking it'll help them speak better. But the problem is, words don't exist alone. They exist in sentences, phrases, and real conversations.
Exactly. If you just memorize words one by one, you won't know how to actually use them. That's why so many learners struggle to form natural sentences. They know the words, but they don't know how they fit together.
Native speakers don't learn words in isolation. They pick up phrases naturally from conversations. That's what makes their speech flow effortlessly.
And that's why learning vocabulary with context is so important. Instead of just memorizing run into, you should learn it as part of a sentence, like, I ran into my friend at the mall yesterday. Now, you actually understand that it means meet unexpectedly.
Yes. So, how do you fix this habit? First, never learn words alone. Always learn them inside full sentences.
Second, notice how words are used in real conversations, whether it's in movies, podcasts, or books. Pay attention to the way native speakers naturally combine words.
And finally, for every new word you learn, find at least 3 example sentences. The more you see it in action, the better you'll remember it.
That's also why our ebook 16 Skills to Master. Any English conversation is so useful. Instead of just giving you word lists, we summarize 16 key conversation skills and teach them through real-life dialogues.
Right. This book helps you learn words in real situations, so you actually see how they're used instead of just memorizing them. And once you've mastered these common conversation structures, you'll find it surprisingly easy to adapt them to any situation.
So if you've been struggling with vocabulary, try focusing on learning with context. It'll make a huge difference.
Now, let's talk about the sixth bad habit: sticking to comfortable vocabulary. It's really easy to rely on words you know well, like very, good, or bad, because they're simple and safe. But using them too much limits your growth in English.
Those basic words might get the job done, but they don't help you sound more natural or precise. Imagine if you always said very cold instead of finding a better word, like freezing. It's just not as impactful.
Right. The key is to challenge yourself to use more specific, natural words instead of relying on the same old ones. You can start by replacing words like very with something more precise.
For example, instead of saying very cold, you could say freezing. It's not only more accurate, but also makes your English sound smoother and more confident.
Another example, instead of saying very tired, try exhausted. It's a more powerful word that really gets your point across.
And if you want to describe feeling very happy, you could say thrilled. It's a much stronger and more colorful way to express your emotions.
So, how do you fix this habit? Start challenging yourself to replace basic words with more natural, specific alternatives.
A good way to practice is by learning synonyms and phrases that native speakers actually use. When you hear them, try to repeat them until they feel natural.
And just like we've been saying, practice makes perfect. The more you push yourself to expand your vocabulary, the more comfortable you'll feel using it.
And the best part? This will help you sound more like a native speaker, which is the goal.
Let's move on to the seventh bad habit, not asking questions when you don't understand. It's so easy to just nod or say, yeah, or when you're lost in a conversation, but that only leads to confusion and misunderstandings.
Sometimes, learners feel embarrassed to ask for clarification, thinking it might make them look bad. But that's totally not the case. Native speakers won't judge you for asking questions.
Right. The worst thing you can do is pretend to understand. It just keeps you stuck. If you're confused, you need to ask. It's the only way to make sure you're on the same page.
So, instead of just nodding, try using simple phrases like, sorry, could you say that again? Or, what does that word mean? Those are polite and clear ways to ask for help.
Another great phrase is, can you give me an example? If you're still confused, don't hesitate to ask for further explanation. It shows that you want to learn and improve.
And if you're unsure about what you heard, you can always repeat it back to check if you understood correctly. Something like, so, you're saying that, is a good way to double check.
Absolutely. It's a great way to ensure you got the message right. Don't let the fear of asking hold you back. It's better to ask than to stay confused.
For example, instead of pretending you understood take it for granted, you could ask, sorry, what do you mean by take it for granted? That way, you'll know exactly what's being said.
Asking questions is a powerful tool for learning. It opens up conversations and gives you the chance to practice more. Now, let's talk about the eighth bad habit, believing you're too old to learn. It's common for adults to think that only kids or young people can pick up languages easily, but that mindset can really hold you back.
Absolutely. Some adults think that because they're older, they won't be able to learn as easily or quickly as younger learners. But that's not true at all.
Right. In fact, adults often have an advantage when it comes to learning. We have better life experience, more developed learning strategies, and a deeper understanding of grammar, logic, and patterns. These things actually make it easier to learn languages faster.
Adults can make sense of grammar rules more efficiently than kids, and they can connect new information with things they already know. So it's not about age, it's about leveraging what you already know.
That's a great point, Noah. Instead of focusing on how young people might seem to learn more easily, focus on your own strengths. You have a lot of skills that make language learning more effective.
And it's also about setting realistic goals. If you compare yourself to kids, you'll only get discouraged. But when you set smaller, achievable goals, you'll feel proud of the progress you're making.
Remember, thousands of adults learn English successfully every year. You're definitely not alone. If they can do it, so can you.
So let go of that belief that you're too old. Embrace the learning process and celebrate the experience because you're more capable than you think.
And finally, let's talk about inconsistent practice. It's easy to fall into the trap of studying intensively for a few days and then taking long breaks. But this can actually slow down your progress.
That's right, Luna. The key to mastering English, or any language, is regular practice. Studying for long hours once a week is nowhere near as effective as practicing every day for just 15 to 30 minutes.
When you take long breaks between sessions, your brain forgets what you've learned. But if you make English a daily habit, even for just 10 minutes a day, you'll see much better results.
And it's not just about memorizing vocabulary or grammar. You need to use English in different ways. Listen, speak, write, and read. The more you incorporate it into your daily life, the faster you'll improve.
That's why finding fun ways to practice is important. Watch shows, play language games, or chat with friends in English. Make it something enjoyable, not a chore.
Exactly. So, instead of studying for 3 hours once a week, try practicing just 20 minutes every day with small activities like writing, listening, and speaking. Consistency is key.
And if you're unsure how to get started, be sure to check out our last episode where we talk about how to build a solid routine for learning English. We've got plenty of tips for you.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for joining us, and remember, consistent, fun practice is what will help you succeed. Stay motivated and keep learning.